Now, here's your host and professor of Thinkology, Jim Brown.
You know, I've been reading about this kid, I think out on the West Coast is where he's from, who was involved in the terrible DWI where he killed 3 or 4 people, and his defense lawyer gets him off or to a very light slap on the wrist, no jail time sentence because of affluenza. Affluenza, not influenza, but affluenza. He's so affluent and that he was coddled as a kid that he really can't hold the kid accountable. I've never heard of that before, and I've been a lawyer and watched this stuff for many, many years. What the heck is affluenza, and how can someone get free from jail on something like that? Call Scott Palmer. He's a criminal defense attorney, done a ton of DWIs, vehicular manslaughter cases, and Scott's a legal expert. He's an attorney in Dallas with the Scott Palmer Law Firm, scottpalmerlaw.com. Hey, Scott, glad to have you on the show today. Scott, you have been involved as a lawyer for many years, and have you ever heard of anything close to a defense, an affluenza defense that was thrown up by the defense attorney involving this young man who killed several people in his DWI?
This is a unique defense. I've never heard of anything like it in my career, and I don't think anybody else has either. It's definitely a first for a Texas defense attorney to make such an argument, and apparently it worked, but I don't think it's ever going to work again. I can tell you that much.
I wonder. The lawyer representing this young man, he's certainly entitled to a defense. I wonder how the lawyer even came up with such a defense. In my wildest imagination, and I've handled criminal defense cases years ago when I was practicing, I never considered something like that. You probably wouldn't either. I wonder what even piqued his interest or perked his interest to come up with a defense like this.
Well, I think they had the kid looked at by a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is the one who actually came up and coined the phrase affluenza. And I don't think he did it intentionally, and it's stuck, of course, because this case has gotten so much focus and so much attention because, of course, he killed 4 people, left one a paraplegic, and this was just a mass destruction this young man at age 16 caused on so many people in such a short, blink of an eye. So they sent him to a psychiatrist to have the psychiatrist help them assess, what kind of, defense they could come up with. And he literally, off the cuff, I think, called it affluenza because of the way the parents had no real discipline of this child. They gave him anything he wanted. He was coddled, like you said, and they came up with this idea that he didn't really know right from wrong because his parents had been no major influence in his life, which is the exact opposite of what you get normally in a criminal case, which is parents aren't around because either they're in prison, they're dead, and there's all sorts of different types of defenses. But I've never heard of if you're too poor, well, Judge, I'm too poor, I didn't know right from wrong. They came up with the opposite. He's so rich that he had so many things in his life, but no good parenting. And the judge bought it at some level. We don't know exactly what she went for because it was a closed hearing. But that judge, of course, this was her kind of final opus. She did not seek re-election after this situation, and I don't think she would have been re-elected after the decision was so controversial over here.
Well, she certainly defined her legacy and will go down in history as the judge that did just a horrendous thing. In a case like this, too, the parents, the mother, it's so weird. She takes the kid and runs off to Mexico with him, and she certainly ought to face some exposure and liability for not coddling the kid, but participating in his flight from justice, I would think, right?
She's been indicted by the Tarrant County, it's in Fort Worth, Texas, by the grand jury for hindering the apprehension of the fugitive. And the question is that going to stick? I've looked at the law, I've looked at the cases. There's a good chance that she actually gets out of that case because the kid was on probation, and the law doesn't really contemplate helping a fugitive on a probation violation. It has to be a new offense. So I would not be surprised if she actually gets away with what she did. Now, if actually she did it, she helped him go to Mexico. They changed their hair color. They hid in Mexico in Puerto Vallarta. It's not exactly the smartest place to be. Half of Texas goes there for spring or winter break, which is exactly when they got found and located. But she's been indicted. She's on a home electronic monitor right now on bond. She got out of jail. And I imagine her trial is going to go relatively soon, but I think the state of Texas is going to have a hard time convicting her of that under the law, which will be a shame.
Well, I mean, but if the kid was on probation and then he does not show up for his probation and she is an accessory and keeping him from doing what the court ordered him to do, she wouldn't be an accessory to in some way. You don't think they can get her for that then, huh?
Well, I mean, she did it. I think she did help, hinder him and secrete him and helped him escape the jurisdiction. The question is whether the law actually criminalizes what she did in the context of a probation violation. The law says it has to be a new offense. And these are nuances that your listeners probably don't care about, but there's so much focus and attention on the mom and how she continued to be a bad parent and went to Mexico with him and then left the husband behind. I think they're estranged. And if she actually gets away with this, it'll just add more fuel to the fire that this family seems to be untouchable. But now what's going on is they're trying to take the juvenile and make him an adult, send him to adult court. We had a hearing yesterday in Tarrant County, but it was postponed because they didn't get notice. So another legal issue. But I foresee that the current judge, the new judge, is going to transfer his case to adult court rather than let it expire when he's 19, which is just in April. So to have him on supervision until he's 26 years old and make sure he is accountable for what he did. And if he does mess up on that probation, he could be looking at up to 20 years on each count for this intoxication manslaughter. So the public wants him to be transferred to adult court and to hold him accountable. And, of course, everyone's kind of rooting for him to mess up while on probation. But the things that he's done in the past, going to Mexico, this alleged party that he was at where he may have been consuming alcohol, that won't be adjudicated as an adult in adult court because it happened while he was on juvenile probation, which is, the way it works with the law. But I think he'll get transferred, and the way history has been written with this kid, I do not foresee him actually waking up and becoming a responsible young adult and understanding the consequences are severe. But we'll see. Only time will tell on that.
Scott, what about you? You represent those who accuse the DWI, and what's your view of drunk driving of young people today? There's a lot of push for having a designated driver. Is drunk driving on the increase? Is it stable? Are kids using designated drivers? What's been your view of watching this because of all the folks you represent?
Well, over the years, I've had multiple, younger. It seems like it's not getting under control. I don't think the use of designated drivers is on the rise. Unfortunately, I think these kids these days are using not just alcohol, but various drugs and getting behind the wheel and are being impaired. And like this kid Couch, he was on more than alcohol, although he was triple the legal limit on alcohol. He also had Xanax in his body. So, I'm seeing a trend of more than just one, alcohol. It's usually a combination of things in their bodies. And I'm seeing, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, in Texas, it's 21 to drink. And every state, I'm not sure how it is in Louisiana. When I was living there, it was 18 to consume. But I think the problem is going to be there for a while until at some point where there's mandatory interlock devices on everybody's vehicle, which, of course, is a whole another topic of conversation. We're going to have kids behaving like adults, but, irresponsible adults and getting behind the wheel like this Couch kid. And he was 16 years old when he did this, and he was wasted, and he had no business anywhere near a vehicle. And he had friends in his car with him that were injured, right? People that were driving with him that voluntarily got in a vehicle with a known drunk kid. So it's horrible, and
right.
It needs to be stopped. And
very much so. Scott, coming up the break, we've got to go. Scott Palmer's a criminal defense lawyer in Dallas. ScottPalmer.com. You can find it on my website at JimBrownUSA.com.